Welcome to the Austin Zaback Show, where every guest is meant to leave listeners inspired and motivated, propelling them to pursue their passions and live up to their full potential.
Imagine having 2 kids and a wife. We moved states, and I've got $5.38 in my name and a negative net worth. It was rough. It's just part of the journey. Sales and marketing drives every business, the marketing engine. Problem is that most of the infopreneurs out there, they're just copying and duplicating the same thing. So when you're talking to people and you have real value to deliver, you don't have to be the greatest speaker. You just have to be valuable in what you're saying.
Welcome back to another episode of the Austin is Zaback Show. Today, we've got a very special guest in the house, AJ Adams. And AJ Adams, amongst a ton of other stuff, a lot of accolades, in the marketing world. I actually don't know that I've ever interviewed a marketer at your caliber. So really excited for this one. You were actually the director of marketing for a massive company out here. Well, they have an office out here where I live in Arizona. They've got an office in Miami. They're all about, 10Xing, right? And dude, you've managed, a lot of money. I know at one point, I think $30 million in ad spend, you kind of had oversight of. And man, dude, obviously, what you've done is insane, but I'm excited to jump into it, and I appreciate you being on the pod.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. I'm honored to be on the show. I've been watching it, and let's jump to it. This will be good.
This will be really good, dude. Yeah, you're looking good today too, man. I feel like I gotta
special occasion. I had to pull out the look really sharp.
Yeah,
got to make sure I'm up to caliber with the podcast.
I gotta step, but dude, I used to wear a suit every day, And if I lived in New York, I'd wear a suit every day, right? Sometimes 100%. I watch Billions or whatever,
right?
And Suits is a good show,
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I'd love to do that, but it's too dang hot here, bro.
Yeah, I ran from the car to the building. Yeah, New York is high fashion. My former business partner was he was a guy behind brands like Jennifer Lopez, and he's in a suit every day, full suit. It's a different world when you're living there.
If you're not in one, you're the oddball out, right? Yeah,
and it can't be a cheap suit. They can tell.
Oh yeah,
they can tell.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Well, man, I'm ready to jump into it. For anybody watching and listening, this is going to be a phenomenal podcast. Obviously, you're a legend in the world of marketing, right? You've worked for big people, managed a lot of money, overseen big teams of people too, right? And dude, we live in a day and an age where if somebody's watching and they're not marketing, right? We were talking a little bit before the show, about if you're a marketer, right? You can pivot. When you have brand
100%.
Awareness and people know who you are and you have attention. I think Grant Cardone, he talks a bit about attention is the new currency, right?
Yeah, I like to say attention is the first currency of business. Before people pay you money, they pay attention. And everyone is always spending attention. Anyone who's watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, they're spending attention. So before they spend money, they spend attention. You just have to know how to get that attention and get it at scale, get it in the right way. So, take it back to grade school. And you ask the questions, who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who are they paying attention to? Where are they paying attention? How are they paying attention? What kind of content are they consuming? When are they paying attention? Why? And then, you go through those questions. And when you start there, that's how you can start to get in front of the right people. Just to ask that simple question.
I love that. Yeah, you think about even TV, right?
Right.
And infomercials, and we think way back, and we think of 2 a.m. You're laying in the bed, you get the weight loss infomercial, right? They're getting your attention.
Yeah,
right.
They know who's up at that time.
They do. They're very good at it, actually, right?
Yeah, and it's all data. It goes back to data. There's so much in marketing. It's really broad a category, but there's we can talk about that. My philosophy on marketing. But when you're getting attention, it ultimately comes down to tactics change and have changed. They change really fast. Now with the internet, the last, let's say the 2000s, it's changing faster and faster. But if you understand the thing that doesn't change, which is human psychology, that never changes. People are always operating the same way, just faster and maybe slight variations. But when you understand how people and psychology works, then you understand how to use tactics, how to get attention, how to leverage that attention. And that's where I really go deep, psychology and syntax, how the brain works, and then the words we use to get people to make buying decisions. How do you persuade someone? Not convince, not manipulate, but persuade. And that means it's to the benefit of the other person. But you got to know how people think.
I love that. So how did you get to where you're at? I think there's a lot of people that like are decent marketers, right? Like they've kind of done like a decent job, But I mean, to talk to somebody who's worked for, massive names in the industry and to achieve what you've achieved, like how does one actually get to that level? Like how'd you get there?
Make more mistakes than most people. I mean, yeah, I've gotten to do a lot of cool things, but I've made a lot of mistakes. And so there's personal philosophy, there's confidence, and there's hubris. Confidence is my personal definition, believing you can get it done, even when you don't know how you'll get it done. You know you're going to make it happen. Hubris is when you believe I'm the best, I'm at the top of the hill, no one can ever take this hill. And that means you have a lack of awareness around who is coming up, who is better, who is studying, who's outworking or out mastering you. So I've always stayed in the place of confidence where I know I'll get it done because I'm always looking for who's doing it better, who's better than me. Let me go learn from them. Not ego, but let me go pay them to learn from them. I'll go buy their program. I buy programs that don't make any sense for me to buy. I opt into things. I mean, I'm a marketer. I'm on more marketing email lists than probably most consumers because I'm studying. What are you sending me? When I see an ad online, I click that ad and then I do nothing. I want to see, are you going to retarget me? What's your strategy? What's your funnel look like? So where I'm at is a byproduct of a lot of study, a lot of execution, a lot of mistakes. And for the clients I work with, past 20 years, I've just made more mistakes than they've made. And so I've learned more lessons than they know.
Yeah, for sure. What has been like a big struggle in working with some of the names that you've worked with? Like the big names. I mean, are there expectations like through the roof? Like what?
Oh yeah. We talked about New York and the high fashion. So my former business partner, he was the guy that architected the deal, and these are multi-billion-dollar deals. Jennifer Lopez working for Tommy Hilfiger. He was Tommy's business partner. He scaled Damon John's company. We wrote a book together called The $1 Billion Branding Blueprint. It's still on Amazon. It is a number 1 bestseller. And what I learned from him is that in certain spaces, and it varies. I've met guys running $100 million companies, super humble. Like you never know, like just easygoing. Oh no, it's all good. Let's. They're high driving, but they get people and they value people. I've met people running $2 million companies who think they're all that and the best thing since sliced bread. So the biggest challenge is learning people, because it's one thing to know tactics, it's one thing to master your expertise, but if you master how to read people, how to influence and persuade people, there's nothing you can't do. And I spent I invested a lot into that. So there's a guy that trained, his name is Joel Bauer. He trained Russell Brunson, Dan Locke, Myron Golden, pretty much every 1900 of the biggest names. He trained them. So I spent 14 days, 8 hours a day training with him, learning how to persuade, languaging. And these are the type of things that you can use to manipulate, but that comes down to, are you an ethical person? So, the most challenging thing in working with people like that is the relationship. You got to be really good at mastering the relationship aspect, which means it's a give and take. It's the verbal judo, all these different principles. But it's not about me. It's about how do I serve this person up until the point that they cross a line of no longer valuing you as a person. Then that's where to move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of all the names that you just mentioned, who do you think, who do you look up to? Who's the guy where you're like, dude, that guy, he freaking knows what he's doing,
Man, there's a few, and it kind of ebbs and flows through different seasons I'm in. Right now, I'm really following really closely Myron Golden, Taylor Welch as well. These guys have, their foundation of faith resonates with me. I mean, I started as a youth pastor, then I was a speaker, and that's where I learned branding and marketing. So I'm looking at a lot of their content because they've shifted from making a lot of money to still making even more money, but really people focused. Because marketing, the goal of marketing is to generate revenue. The function of marketing is to build relationships. So it's about people. And the core of relationship is you have to love the people that you're serving, and it has to be serving. But marketing is so transactional. So I focus on the transformation. And that's why I look at guys like Myron and Joel Bauer and Taylor Welch. They're about transformation. How can I create transformation? I like to think of micro and macro transformations. A macro transformation is I was a janitor and making $12 an hour. And now, I've worked for, some big names, and I've built a pretty awesome career, and it's about to get even better. Micro transformation is you shift someone's mindset. Where you thought you couldn't succeed, now you believe you can. I've elevated your belief in yourself. And that's what it really comes down to. And that's why I value these guys. It's transformation over transaction. It's relationship over revenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've gone, and wild to think about that you were a janitor to where you're at now. How long ago was that?
That was 2012 to about 2014.
Wow.
Yeah. That was one of two jobs though. You know, we had two cars at the time, moved to California. We sold one car and, you know, a little mini story. So we got to California. We were going to start a youth ministry. A friend of mine was planning a church out there. Now he's like doing multiple seven figures as an entrepreneur, still serving in his church. We moved out there to start the youth ministry. So my wife, 2 daughters at the time. My daughters were 3 and 7. So, you know, we get to Southern California, which we all know is pricey.
Yeah.
No jobs, no money, just a vision and a passion to serve people. We get there, 6-hour drive from Phoenix. Let's get some food. So we pull into Taco Bell. I pull up, I order a taco 12-pack, which is like $15 at the time, something really small. Get to the window, and I hand the girl my card. She goes to do her thing, and she comes back. And she has a concerned look on her face. And she says the thing that you never want to hear anyone say. I'm sorry, your card was declined. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Maybe I give her the wrong card or, you know, something happened. So I pull out my phone. I check my bank account. I check my second bank account. Both accounts are negative. One's negative by like $250. The other's like $150. I have no money. So I pull out, park in a spot. My wife's confused because she doesn't know what's going on. She just saw me looking at my phone. What's happening? I thought we were going to get lunch. We have no money. But now the panic starts to set in. Well, what do you mean we have no money? Like you said we'd be good. You had a plan. It's all going to work out. Because I spent 6 months selling her on the vision of uprooting our lives and moving to another state. That was more expensive without jobs secured or income secured. And we searched around the car. Took us about 5 minutes. And we found a Ziploc bag with all the loose change that fell out of the furniture as we moved. $5.38. I'm 28. So I was then the age you're now. Mm-hmm. So imagine having 2 kids and a wife. We moved states, and I've got $5.38 to my name and a negative net worth. Mm. And that was a moment that I decided, never again. This is never happening again. And it was a long road from there. You know, it wasn't overnight and everything changed. It was working 2 jobs as a janitor, serving in the church, selling a car to pay rent. It was rough, you know, but it's just part of the journey.
Yeah. Crazy to think about, dude. And the fact that you're able to have that macro transformation, you know, and I mean, really at the end of the day, to your point, obviously when you're in it, you know, it felt probably like an eternity. I mean, you know, but at the end of the day, hindsight's 2020 and looking back, you know, 2014 to 2023, I mean, in 9 years time, you went from that, right? Working the 2 jobs, you know, to where you're at today. I mean, you're a best-selling author. You know, dude, like the accolades are ridiculous. I mean, right? And I mean, at the end of the day, you know, for somebody watching, right? Like, again, in retrospect, like 9 years to completely 180 your entire life.
Right.
Kind of wild.
Yeah, and that's the thing about time. You know, my perspective has shifted because hindsight is 2020. Yeah. So looking back, I can see what I didn't know. But I posted yesterday an Instagram reel of a clip from a talk I did. I was in front of 6,000 people as a commencement ceremony. And I'm talking to these graduates about writing their story and how when I was a janitor making $12 an hour, in between cleaning urinals, it was a disgusting job. I mean, the stuff people put in urinals.
I can't even imagine.
You'd have to up the rating on this podcast.
Yeah.
But the stuff people put in urinals is disgusting.
Yeah.
And that was my job, cleaning that up every single day, 40 hours a week. In addition to another job that was another 20, 30 hours a week. And every single day, as I was doing that, I was listening to podcasts like this. I was listening to. I knew that I was aware that I didn't know things. I grew up broke. I mean, I'm a middle school dropout, got a GED. Parents weren't highly educated. My dad had a certificate for computer science. There wasn't a lot of education. My mom was a high school dropout. So I knew I need to learn money. I need to learn business. I need to learn communication. I need to learn how to wear a suit, how to show up in the right way. So I started crafting who I needed to be. Not changing my personality, but developing it and evolving who I was so I could show up the right way and operate in those spaces that I knew I would one day be. And so in that talk I mentioned, I said, I knew one day I'd be on a stage like this. And same thing now. I knew one day that I'd be doing podcasts like this. I knew one day that I would be there. So it was a decision because success happens by choice, not chance. So wherever someone is at, take time out of the equation. Because what happens is we look at it as success is linear. It's not an up and down. Think of like a ladder.
I don't know if you know this, but the majority of the views that we get are from people that are not subscribed. So do me a huge favor and subscribe if you like the podcast so far. Smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's just go ahead and get back to the interview.
Most people think, well, I'm down here. Well, Russell Brunson, Grant Cardone, they're up here. Austin's up here. That's the wrong perspective, because that means that you put yourself at a place where you're lower, which means you're of lower value, and now the effort is the climb, as opposed to thinking of it linear, where they're just further down the road than you are. And the only difference between where you're at and where you want to be is time and cultivation. They've had more time and they've cultivated more. And what people have to remember is that's the reality. So if you're not yet where you want to be, it's because you're not yet who you need to be. So I knew that. So I thought, well, who do I need to be to achieve what I want? Let me develop myself. Let me educate myself. I have 45 credits from 3 different colleges where I did 1 semester. And that was before being a janitor. All my education is self-education. Investing money, investing time, picking up books, reading articles, getting around the right people, hanging out with people like yourself, and really diving deep into asking questions. I launched a whole podcast just to educate and interview entrepreneurs. And I had Jack Canfield on there. I had Tanner Chittister, because I wanted to learn from these guys. So I figured out, what do I have to do to get in front of them and pick their brain and learn? And if you're committed to that, then it takes time out of the equation. You'll get where you want to go faster. But 9 years later, I'm like, I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
There's so much more.
We were talking about that a minute ago, you know, and I'm excited to talk more about that, the mindset, right? And I was kind of telling you, that, I battle that sometimes of like, look how far I've come versus look at how far I have to go.
Yeah.
But you kind of answered that in a way, by thinking of it linearly, and if that's a word, and thinking of it like as time and cultivation. I like how you worded that, because at the end of the day, you could be, and who you have to become, right? And I like that you put it that way, because I could become who I need to be now before I end up in that situation, right? So like, and then you just attract the new reality to you. You're already the person you need to be.
Yeah, and that's the truth. You have to become that person because if you think of it in terms of, you can't carry more weight until you get stronger, but you have to carry the weight to get stronger. So it's understanding, I'm not where I want to be. Who do I need to be? Let me become that. And as you become that, you never stop the process of becoming more. So I still study incessantly. I buy a book a week, and I'm reading books. I'm on webinars. I'm studying things. When I'm on social media, I'm not on there just for entertainment. I'm studying who's doing what, who's moving, who's popping up, whose ads am I seeing constantly. How do I game the algorithm? So if you're this constant student, then you're always expanding who you are, because it's not natural to not evolve. It's not natural to stay stuck. That's just not. There's entropy and atrophy. Those are laws of physics of the universe. It's how God ordained the world. If you're not growing, you're dying. So you're always learning something. You're either learning how to grow and become more successful, or when we say we're staying stuck, quote unquote, you're learning how to continue to cultivate nothingness, which really means you're cultivating just toxicity and you're just staying.
Yeah.
Like nothing truly stays. It either decays or it progresses.
And you're going down.
Yeah.
At that point, like you think you're staying flat, but really you're declining.
Right. Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, because you're getting older and you're not evolving.
Yeah. Like I'll be 40, in January. So I'm at that place where I'm in really good shape. Yeah. I had a checkup recently, and doctor's like, your heart's good. Like my blood pressure it's above average. I'm still athletic despite the dad bod. There's an athlete under here. Spent a lot of time in martial arts. So, but I can feel it that I've got it to keep pushing, because as my body ages, as my mind ages, I have to continue to develop it and exercise it. And it's like anything, it's a weapon. Bruce Lee had a really good quote that I don't remember the quote exactly, but the gist of what he was saying was, your body's a weapon. So why would you not continue to master and exercise your weapon and keep it in a condition where, I call it being fight ready. We're in Arizona, it's the Wild Wild West. Some people might be offended by this, but if you know me, I don't care. If I'm out and about, I always have a pistol on me.
Yeah.
I'm always ready. Everything on me is a weapon, and I know how to use it, because I've got a family to take care of. I've got people to take care of, and you got to approach your business, your life the same way. Like, are you ready? At any moment, put me on a stage, doesn't matter where, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I love that, dude. When did you have the time to write a book between being, best-selling author, like you go from two jobs to, getting into the world of marketing, being around, some of the best, I mean, raising two kids, family.
And three now.
Three now. Okay.
Yeah.
To being an author. I mean, when did you write the book? And then for anybody who's never obviously seen the book or anything, what did you write it about?
Yeah. So I'll say two things on that. One, everyone has time. Like, you have time. It's just how you allocate that time. We all have 24 hours, and you've heard that before, but most people don't allocate it properly. They don't invest their time. They spend their time. And the difference is, you spend your time, you don't get a return on things you spend on, but you get a return on things you invest on or invest in. So I invested my time. When I was, you're taking me back now to pulling up memories. When I was a janitor, there was a second level of this 40,000 square foot warehouse. And there's a desk up there for whatever reason. It's the old desk. I cleaned it off. I'm the janitor, so I got my cleaning supplies. I clean off the desk. And it's in the corner, and there's all of these, it was a packaging warehouse, so these big rolls of like a cardboard, and they were all just stacked up. So I kind of situated the desk behind that and kind of cleaned it up. It was dark, but I would take my laptop, which at the time was this janky laptop that the screen was messed up, so it looked like the Matrix. Like, it was black and it was typing in white, but it was enough. I took what I had, and between studying and learning and doing my job, I was writing every day. And so I wrote my first book about success when I wasn't successful, which doesn't make sense to most people, but I was documenting what I was doing to get to the place of success. And then, when I look back on that, those principles are what I still live by. So that was the first book. The second book was the one that became a bestseller with my old business partner, and that came out of showing up the right way. We all have knowledge. It's just most people don't know how to assimilate and disseminate their knowledge. They don't know how to package it in a way that makes it valuable. So I spent a lot of time studying how to do that. I would study, as a speaker, I would study comedians, obviously motivational speakers. I would study TED Talks, but I also study like horror movies. I would study music. Like, what's the cadence of how they communicate? How do you tell a story in a really effective way? How can I take something that someone else may say in 10 words and say that in 3 to 5 words? So I was able to answer your question, I was able to write a book really quickly because I learned how to organize my thoughts and just systematically structure, because I had so little time. So it was, write an outline. Okay, let me flesh this out. Let me flesh it out a little more. Now, I mean, it's so much easier. You got ChatGPT, you got all these tools, but you still have to have the knowledge.
You do, yeah. Which, I mean, arguably that knowledge of taking information, packaging it up, right? Learning how to deliver that information in, to your point, in such a way that it's extremely valuable. That is, in a nutshell, I mean, it's marketing, it is public speaking, it is, like you said, I mean, if you want to be a comedian, I mean, no matter what you want to do, if you want to be phenomenal at it, you have to learn how to do that, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you can learn to do it at different levels. I mean, I'll give an example. I would call myself a really good speaker. I understand language. I understand how to hold an audience. I understand the structure. And, I study comedians like Kevin Hart, even old school comedians, Sinbad, guys that I really like. And a comedian will put their talk, their whole set into bits. So they have a joke. This joke's 5 minutes. This joke's 10 minutes. And I would sit down and watch like Kevin Hart's early stuff, and I would outline his jokes, and I would time how long each bit was. So when I would go to speak on stage, I would have bits. In this interview, I have certain bits that I know this is a story and this is how long it is, and I can do different versions. I went to speak in front of 6,000 people, and I'm supposed to have 30 minutes. I get on site, and 10 minutes before I'm supposed to go on stage, they tell me, we're behind schedule, you now have 15 minutes. So I had to take what was 30 minutes of content and shrink it down, which was easy. I just mapped it on a napkin because I had it structured the right way. So that's one part. The other part is you don't have to be the most phenomenal speaker. Alex Hormozy is not a great speaker, but he had 250,000 people on a webinar, and he just absolutely crushed the close recently. And Russell Brunson, he's a little better, but he talks really fast. It's about the content you're sharing. Like, is it valuable to the people? And are you talking at them, or are you talking to them? So when you're talking to people and you have real value to deliver, you don't have to be the greatest speaker. You just have to be valuable in what you're saying.
Yeah. But how does somebody, if they're watching, how do they become, if they want to go learn, I mean, obviously study.
Sure.
Do you believe that you should hire a speaking coach? Should people go to Toastmasters? Like, is there anything that people should do if they want to become better?
Yeah, absolutely. Get on stages. And here's what I mean. Redefine what a stage is. If you speak on a platform, a physical stage, that's a stage. Social media, TikTok, those are all stages. Start speaking. And the reason why speaking is the number one fear, that and the fear of falling, is because people don't want to be judged. And they don't want to be judged because they question if they have value. Well, do I have value to deliver? You don't know the value you have to deliver until you start delivering value. And then you let people tell you, you look at the feedback, and you have to differentiate between who's a hater and who's giving you just criticism and constructive feedback. So start doing it. Toastmasters, I did Toastmasters. I won competitions. I don't recommend it for any speaker. If you want to be a really good connecting speaker, transformational, Toastmasters will teach you the rudimentary way, but most people understand how to connect with people. So speaking is just doing what you do naturally and organizing it in a more structured way, so there's more intention and purpose behind it. So you can pay a speaker. There's guys like Pete Vargas that do it. There's I have a speaker training program that I'm getting ready to relaunch. You can do that, but if you don't have the investment like I didn't, just get out there and start speaking. Go on social media and then study and then do it. Study and apply. Study and mimic until you master it. And then, again, you don't have to be the greatest speaker.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Phenomenal advice. What would you recommend for people, let's talk about marketing for a minute. I want to talk about packaging up marketing and delivering it, right, to the consumer. How do people, everybody needs to either be a good marketer or hire a good marketer, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and you have to know the difference of which you need and when. So marketing is, statistically, the first thing that gets cut in a business when there's a crisis or a recession or a business is struggling is marketing. Because marketing is seen as an expense. And the reason it's seen as an expense is because very few marketers and almost no business owners understand how to calculate the ROI of marketing. They don't know because they're not tracking it properly. And they're working with marketers who don't truly know what they're doing. So when they look at their expenses, their finance stakeholder or their accountant says, well, what's the return on this marketing? You're spending $10,000 a month. What's the return? I don't know. We spend $100,000 a year, $120,000, and we make $300. So I think it's working. I don't do marketing like that. So there's different levels of marketing. But to answer the question, as a business owner, you need to understand the basics of marketing, which is how do you connect with people and the relationship. That's why when I teach the psychology of marketing, because I like to say I'm in the business of getting marketers fired. Because I teach business owners how to think like a CMO. So there's 5 different levels of marketing or marketers. The first level is the creator. That's someone who does this. We create content. The next level is implementer. That's your guy who's running the board, who builds the systems and implements the tech stack. Then there's the executor. That's the guy who's going to cut this and then put it online, run ads, or do whatever. Then there's the top 2 levels, which are most important for a business owner. There's the strategist. You understand who you're trying to reach, where they are, what they want, and how to connect with them. You're playing chess. You're moving the pieces on the board. You're the coach on the sideline running the team. The best NBA coaches can't play nearly half as well as their players, but they understand the game so well. And then you have the leader. That's your CMO. So I operate in the space of strategist and primarily leader, where you understand how to cultivate and develop, recruit. So as a business owner, if you want to scale your marketing, you want to have effective marketing, you've got to learn the basics of what's important. Forget about tactics. Forget about platforms. Learn people. And I tell every business owner, I'll ask the question, who's not doing marketing? A bunch of people raise their hand. And then I'll ask, do you have clients? Yes. Do you have revenue? Yes. Then you are marketing.
Right.
Because that is what marketing is. It's about connecting with people. And automation, technology, the tech stack, paid ads, platforms, that just scales your ability to build relationships faster and in volume. So if you want to be good as a business owner, do what you've been doing and then hire people to scale it. So, then we can get tactical into who's the first role that you hire, depending on your revenue, all that you can get into. But the core of it is you've got to get back to what built your business, which is building relationships, and go find someone who understands how to do that and leverage technology and platforms and ads to do that same thing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I would love to talk about that. Who does somebody hire first? Is there anybody that shouldn't be marketing? I want to kind of get into the nitty gritty of marketing for a minute, because obviously you're the expert, and I think people will find a lot of value. You're clearly what you're doing. So, is there anybody who shouldn't be doing marketing? Like, is there a threshold or a type of industry or whatever where it's like, hey, don't do marketing? Hey, really quick, I'm sure you already know, but I've done over 2,500 wholesale deals in my career, and me and my team consistently do anywhere from 1 to 2 wholesale deals a day. If you're looking to get better at wholesaling, or maybe you're brand new, you've never wholesaled a deal, I would actually love to coach you. I would love to mentor you, and I would love for you to be a part of our education program. All you have to do is go to www.flippinsimple.com, or you can find a link in the description down below and book a strategy session with my team to see if you would be a good fit for our coaching program. Again, this is our exact strategy and formula of how we are actually able to go out every single day and do anywhere from 1 to 2 wholesale deals a day. Nobody's talking about what we're doing, and I really look forward to coaching you and mentoring you. So again, go to www.flippinsimple.com. Now let's just go ahead and get back to the show. And then, how do you actually scale? I love what you said too about, and then I'll let you answer, but I love what you said about like Meta or YouTube or Google, whatever. Like, that's just a platform to scale.
Right.
But technically, if you're running a company, you're already marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting philosophy. I'm writing a book right now, and this will be the first time anyone's hearing it out of my brain. There's 3 models when it comes to business and as it relates to marketing. So there's the siloed model, which is really side by side. So you have marketing, sales, operations, finance, and HR. They're all in a silo running side by side. Imagine lanes on a highway, and each one of them is in a different lane. They're all going toward the same destination, but what happens is they're moving at different speeds, so there's a lack of collaboration. Marketing is excited because we're spending money, or they're pissed because we don't have money, and then we get money, we spend it, and we're getting all these leads in. And sales is upset because the leads are crap and they're not converting. We need better leads. And marketing is saying, well, you're not converting the leads, you're not following up. Finance is like, you guys are both wasting money, you're not making money. Operations, everything's chaos. I need you guys to organize together. And then HR is just in a corner crying because I hired these people, I don't know what to do, and nobody wants, they want to give hugs. That's HR. That's one model.
I love that.
Then there's the overlap model. That's where you have marketing and sales are interconnected. Think of like a Venn diagram, overlapping circles. Then you have finance and marketing are also connected, and then HR is connected, and then operations is in the middle, tying it all together like the quarterback of the team. That model works better. The problem with that model, though, is you have operations at the center of the business, and that's the mistake, because the third model, which is the model that I created, it's called an interconnected model. And I will diagram it for you, but think of it like sales and marketing are one. They're not 2 separate departments. Every business, sales and marketing are really one department. You might have 2 different stakeholders, the marketing leader, your CMO, and then you have a sales leader, but they should all be under marketing. Sales and marketing drives every business, the marketing engine. If you don't have marketing, and it starts with marketing is before sales. If you don't have marketing, you don't have leads for sales to convert. If sales doesn't have leads to convert, then there's no finance for the finance department to manage, or accounting. There's no business for operations to run. There's no business for HR to hire for. Everything starts with marketing. It's the heartbeat of the business. So when you prioritize sales and marketing and build everything else around it, you solve all problems. Any problem in business can be solved with better marketing. Well, we don't have enough revenue. Do better marketing. Well, we don't have enough staff. Do better marketing. Well, no one's buying and the market is tapped out. Do better marketing.
Yeah.
Go to another market. So that's where you start. But the challenge for business owners is 9 out of 10 marketers are not true marketers. They understand a discipline of marketing. They know Facebook ads, or they know content, or they know Google. They know funnels. They know direct response marketing, paid digital. My career has been 20 years across multiple industries, solopreneurs, personality brands, info products, online, offline, outdoor industry, hunting industry, consumer goods, lifestyle, alcohol brands. So I've what's called a T-shaped marketer, broad experience, but I go deep on the psychology and the syntax, the languaging and persuasion. That's what every business needs. That's typically your CMO. Now, if you're a business that's under 50 to 75 million, you have no business hiring a CMO. You don't need one. You're just giving someone a title. Unless you're planning to scale and grow really fast, then it makes sense, because your CMO is leading directors or VPs who are leading directors who are leading the rest of the team. So there's that proper structure. But every business should hire a strategist. go get a fractional CMO. If you're under 50 to 100 million, go get a fractional CMO to build your strategy and lead you in building your team so that you do it right.
Yeah.
Every business, 9 out of 10 times they want to go and hire someone to run Facebook ads. Well, I would ask them, do you know how to run Facebook ads? Do you understand digital marketing? Well, yeah, kind of. Kind of doesn't scale.
Yeah.
So you need someone who understands that to help you hire the right people.
Phenomenal value. I mean, everybody right now should just be like getting a ton of value. So talk to me about education and the world of education. You know, I think that you've done, I mean, like you talk about doing outdoors and hunting and blah, 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 right? And, you know, the tangible physical product world, I feel like, is a totally different world than the education, mentorship, coaching world, high ticket, right? But you've also done a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
But we live in a world where, and correct me if I'm wrong, we live in a world where, like, I feel like, and I don't even know how to describe it, but like the world of coaching and high ticket coaching and mentorship and mastermind and blah, 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 blah. Is it like oversaturated, or are there just like a lot of people doing it that shouldn't be doing it? Or like,
That's a good question.
What do you feel like is wrong in that world? Because I feel like there is something wrong, but I don't exactly know what it is.
Yeah. So I have a couple of thoughts on that. So you're asking if is it saturated? That's the whole blue ocean, red ocean theory. So red ocean, you think of an ocean, there's fish, those are your consumers. Then there's sharks, those are your business owners, your entrepreneurs. If it's a red ocean, all the sharks are eaten. There's a lot of sharks. It's a blue ocean. There's not a lot of sharks. There's more opportunity. There are no blue oceans anymore.
Yep.
What I teach is create your blue pond. So I met a guy. He does over $100 million in e-commerce. Really well known, kind of behind the scenes guy, but he's legit. I went out to his place with some business partners, and we were going to do some business together. So we're talking, kind of checking out his facilities, his operation, and he takes us to his property, just gives us a tour. And he's got acres upon acres out in somewhere in the Midwest is where we were. And he had a pond, and he said, this pond, like, one of the guys asked you, is it good fishing here? He's like, it's perfect fishing. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Well, how do you get that? He said, because I built it. So what he did was, and this is probably 100 square feet or something. It's a massive pond. He cleared the land, he dug it out, and then took all the trees, and he piled the trees like in the center of the pond. And then he stocked it with fish, because he understood that the fish he was stocking it with, again, knowing who you're going after, they would congregate there and they would start breeding, and that was their home. So he knew, if I do that, I'll always have fish. So how does that apply to like a red ocean, blue ocean scenario for a business owner? You have to create your specific message and your tribe. So I can say, I talk about marketing. Well, all marketers talk about marketing. What I really do is I focus on, compassion marketing, caring about your customer and the psychology and the syntax of it. And so you have to have a specific message around what you do, because every marketer is marketing, but how do you differentiate yourself is really the question. It doesn't matter how saturated the market is, because the coaching and info business space is saturated, but guess what? Tony Robbins is still making money. Russell Brunson is still making money. Well, Russell has ClickFunnels, and Tony's been around for a long time. Well, what about all the guys who are coming up? The fact is, no one person can serve everyone. The problem is, and was your question, there's a problem there. The problem is that most of the infopreneurs out there, they're just copying and duplicating the same thing.
For sure.
They have nothing that is actually unique to bring, because they haven't mastered anything. There's a guy recently, I won't say his name, but he got sued by the SEC for like $52 million because he scaled really fast. And guys like Dan Henry and a lot of other guys who were legit, they were calling him out saying, he's a scammer. He's not legit. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then it came out years later, he's getting sued because he scammed people. So it's a really easy business to make money, or easy industry to make money, but there's a lot of charlatans and fakes in the space. So I take it as a personal mission, which is why I say I'm in the business of getting marketers fired, because if I educate a business owner on what real marketing is and I simplify it, because it is simple, all of a sudden they know when they're being lied to. And so they start firing people. Yeah. And then I teach them, here's how you hire the right people. Here's how you do it the right way.
Dude, I love that. And you're dead on, and I love obviously the way that you describe it, but and I see that all the time in the real estate industry, clearly every industry, right?
Yeah.
But there are people who haven't mastered it, right? And they're trying to teach it, And it's so funny you say that too, right? Like I didn't really ever teach at all until recently, and I teach wholesaling. It's the only thing I teach right now. I own a lot of other companies. The only thing I teach is wholesaling, right? And dude, I did it for 10 years before I really actually was like, I'm going to teach it for real.
Yeah.
Like I did a one-off here and there, like maybe a couple years ago, but like, you know, at scale, I mean, I waited until I did over 2,500 deals. Like I knew everything about everything, right? And then I'm like, all right, I'll teach it, you know?
Yeah.
But people don't do that nowadays, right? People do it for a year, not even, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'll freaking teach it. I'll make more money teaching it than I do doing it, right? And it's like, no, dude, you got to do it longer, you know?
Right. They took a Ty Lopez course, and nothing that, like, Ty's legit.
Yeah.
And he's a good marketer. But you get these guys who, and I, you know, when I first started out, I was one of them. Like, I'm going to start a social media marketing agency because it's so easy. And then I realized this is not what people need. Like, I can't, out of integrity, sell something that I haven't done. So my rule when it comes to sales is do what you sell what you've done. Not sell what you do. Do what you sell and sell what you've done. So like you 2,500 deals. That's a lot of practice.
Yeah.
That's a lot of process. And the thing is, if you can't explain something, like if I were to ask you about, like, give me like a 30-second on wholesaling, like just explain what it is.
I mean, wholesaling is where you're getting a property under contract with, I mean, the seller, an agent, whoever, below market value. You're the buyer. You're getting it under contract. You have the A to B purchase contract, and then you're taking that contract and you're assigning it or double closing it to a cash buyer for a profit.
Yeah, 30 seconds. You explain that probably at a 6th to 8th grade level.
Yep.
If you can't do that, you don't actually understand it. And so I learned a principle when I did martial arts. Started martial arts for a long time, earned my black belt rank, and like this was like street style. Like I still have chipped teeth from like training. We came out of our black belt exam 3 hours long. I had to fight. We called it a bullpen. So I walk into the room, and this is the 3rd hour. First hour, do every technique, left side, right side, exhaust you. Next session, mentally exhaust you. Every technique, every term, and it's all in Korean because it was a old style Otakwan Taekwondo, not the jumping around fancy kicks. This was like hurt people for self-defense. Then the 3rd hour, now you're gonna fight. So I step into the room. There were 28 black belts on my my committee. All of them were geared up except for the grandmaster and our 7th degree black belt, and then my instructor who was a 5th degree. All geared up. I fought everyone. One person, then 2 people, then 3 people. And I got knocked out a couple times. I only remember one time getting up. And my instructor says, Mr. Adams, do you want to quit? He like pulls me up off the ground. Do you want to quit? No, I'm like stumbling. I'm trying to get my wherewithal. He said, do you want to quit, Mr. Adams? I said, no, sir. I'm still trying to get it together. Then he screams at me, do you want to quit? And then I woke up, no, sir. And he pulls me close. And I'm thinking in that moment, it's over. He's going to tell me good job. I proved that I have the heart to be a black belt. And no, out of nowhere, bam, punches me in the stomach, pushes me back in. Another couple minutes, just getting the mess beaten out of me. 2 of us left bloody. Fortunately, I wasn't one of them. I was fast enough to not get hit in the face. I got hit everywhere else. But the lesson was, when we earned our black belt, he said, now you start over. Because mastery is proven by your ability to teach something. If you can teach it effectively, then you've mastered it. And effective means you can teach it simply. So I could teach anyone marketing, and depending on, I can assess where they're at, and I'll teach it at the speed of their consumption. How quickly can you learn it? What's your understanding? And that's what mastery is. Most marketers haven't mastered what they do. Take away the Facebook platform, take away ChatGPT, take away the technology. Can they still market? Yeah. And for most of them, the answer is no.
Dude, I love the way that you broke that down. I love the stories too, by the way. You're a phenomenal storyteller.
Another principle of marketing.
For sure. You've got to be a good storyteller, dude.
Yeah. Facts tell, stories sell.
They do. Yeah. Look at Tony, right? You talk about Tony. I mean, talk about a storyteller.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Tony Robbins' like Date with Destiny?
It's on my calendar for next year. Yeah.
I heard he's kind of like maybe gonna retire at some point.
Yeah, or that could be a marketing campaign. So
get him while you can.
Yeah, exactly.
See Tony live, while he's still doing it, right?
Even if it is, I'm in.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man. I mean, he's obviously phenomenal, and I love watching that guy. Phenomenal storyteller. I want to back up. You talked a minute ago about like, don't hire a marketing director, right? Is that would you use that as like the term until you're at 75 million?
Oh, like a CMO.
A CMO, okay.
Yeah. And
so chief marketing officer. So don't hire that till you're at 75 million unless you're trying to scale really quickly, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. The question is, who should somebody hire at the $1 to $10 million a year mark? Like
Right.
where should they be putting their energy? Like what role do they need typically?
Yeah. So 2 words, most powerful words in marketing. These 2 words will tell you if someone is a real marketer. When you ask a question like that, their answer will be, well, it depends. It depends because I don't have enough data. I'm not just going to give you a blanket answer.
Yep.
Like, oh, go to Facebook or you should hire an agency. It depends. So if you're in the $1 to $10 million range, you typically, depending on your industry, in the infopreneur space, you're spending probably 10 to 20% of your projected revenue on marketing, maybe more, because you can get such high return. If you're not getting a 3 to 4 time return, your marketing isn't working really well. You need to raise your price or get more efficient. For most businesses, if it's like brick and mortar, you're probably spending 0.5% to maybe 2% until you really get your marketing efficient. Then you're at like 5 to 10 and then 10 to 12 if you're in a aggressive growth mode. So your first role, I would tell every business owner, you need to go find someone who, someone like myself who understands strategy to build your strategy for you. It might be a single engagement, not necessarily long-term, but you need some guidance. So invest in a program, get in a mastermind, get around other entrepreneurs, but pay somebody to build your strategy for you and like build a architect the blueprint of what your marketing should be. Internal hire, content is fine. Doing stuff like this because that's pretty much anyone can do that. There's not a ton of there's strategy behind it, but it's easier to execute and it's effective even if you don't have a really great strategy. But I would hire an agency because you need a full team to really execute your marketing. But the key is you have to have the strategist because if you hire an agency, agencies are for execution. So if you don't have someone building a strategy, you don't have anything to hand them. And one question, if an agency ever asks a business owner this question, I tell them to run. If they say, well, where do you want to market? That's like your doctor asking you, well, how do you want us to handle that cancer? Like, guy, I came to you for that. Like, you're the expert. And so agencies execute. Go find a strategist who knows how to build marketing plans, marketing campaigns, marketing programs, which is multiple campaigns together. Build out your whole deal, and then go hire an agency to execute the plan that you now have.
Phenomenal advice. What would you say while you talked about social media? I'd love to get, from a guy who obviously has spent a lot of money on marketing, right? Or at least overseen the spend of a lot of money. Then you think about organic marketing, right?
Right.
And you see guys like Grant and Gary V and Ty even at one point. I feel like Ty kind of fell off the planet, but
he kind of went back around.
Yeah. He was the guy that you were with the pond that you were telling me about.
He's on a ranch somewhere.
Right. But you see the big dogs. Like how much of it is organic versus paid, and then do you recommend like? And by the way, when I say that too, I think people think that organic is free, and it's not because it costs. Like for example, I spend probably $30 or so grand a month on organic marketing. Right, because I have 3 full-time editors. I've got a full-time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
it's not magic. Like you post it and they will come. This is not. It's not. Social media is not filled with dreams. It's not that. It doesn't work that way.
So how much should people spend on organic, and how much should they spend on time or money on paid? Could you give me that answer?
Yeah. The simplest answer would be as much as possible, as long as you have a positive ROI. And I want to be clear. ROI, return on investment, not ROAS, return on ad spend. Good marketers don't care about return on ad spend. It's only a leading indicator. I want to see ROI. I worked with the client, and we had a 40-time return on ROI. Full investment in market. They spent 60 grand over a period of, really 3 months, and then we did a 12-day campaign the next quarter, but they did $6 million off of a $3 million off of a $60,000 ad spend.
What industry?
They built pools.
Oh,
so
wow.
Construction. Yeah. So high ticket, and that's why it depends, because 60 grand into a product that's maybe $10,000 might get a 10-time return, which is still phenomenal, but the context matters.
Sure.
So to answer your tell me again your question.
Yeah, organic versus paid.
Right. So you have to have a strategy. This is why everything starts with a strategy, because I would ask, well, what's the strategy with organic? Like, where are you at? Well, we really need leads. We don't have a lot of lead flow. Our revenue's like plateaued or it's down. We need to get it back up. I would tell them, forget about organic. You need to pay. You need to go get lead flow, and you need predictability, which means you know what's coming in because you know how much you're spending and what your return is. You're tracking all that data. Predictable. You need it to be scalable, meaning you are functioning in a way that you can scale up. If you have 3 guys doing organic, that's not scalable. And then you need it to be sustainable, meaning it's a system now that you can keep running. So where you're at, it makes sense to have 3 full-time people doing organic, because all of your paid now drives people to your platform where the organic now makes sense. So you're getting a return without even looking at just looking at your brand. I guarantee I could track a return on the organic, because people who come in through your paid efforts, they don't necessarily buy. And there's something called, now we get to the nerdy stuff. There's something called the law of diffusion of innovation. The law of diffusion of innovation. Simon Sinek has a talk on it on YouTube. People can look it up. But it's a bell curve that describes how consumers, how you gain market share and how consumer behavior works. So there is 2.5% of the market that is innovators. You launch something, it's new, it's fresh, they will buy it now. Like between now and 3 months, they're going to buy as soon as they see it. Then there's 13.5% that are your early adopters. When the innovators buy, and then they see the celebrities endorsing it, or they see the advertisement, within about 3 months, 6 months, they'll buy. That's where most marketers live. And that's where, when you're running ads, direct response, that's where you're getting most of your lead flow. That takes you to the top of the bell curve. The problem is you'll slide back down, because that's only 70% of the market. You need to cultivate. So what you're doing with organic content, you have millions of people that you can now target, because your organic content is reaching them, and over time they're consuming content, they're getting bought in, they're watching a podcast and they see Flip and Simple. Well, what's Flip and Simple? Then they see an ad for your course. Now it's cultivating over time, and that's the strategy. Start with direct response, get leads now, get flow now. And then when you have consistent lead flow and you've reached a peak and you're starting to see, okay, we plateaued, now use organic content to expand your audience. Also expand your ad spend, but expand your audience, because now you're expanding into that 34% that is the early majority, and the 34% that's the late majority. So 68% of the market is your solid buyers. They'll spend 6-12 months researching. They're going to look up Austin Zaback scam. They're going to look up Flip and Simple reviews. They're going to look at the 1-star. And when they make a decision, they're very informed, so they're more loyal. They'll buy again, and they'll promote, and they'll tell other people. They're your best customers. That's why Apple spends so much money on content, endorsements, things like that. They're not looking for just the ready to buy now people. They're cultivating so that their transactions are happening with people that came into their ecosystem 3, 6, 9, 12 months ago and have watched content and been cultivated. And that's how you have scalability, predictability, and sustainability, because now you have this massive audience that's being cultivated. So 3 months from now, we have people who will be ready to buy. 6 months from now, they'll be ready to buy. So there's a strategy and a cadence and a sequence to it. And if you do it right, you build out long term. But if you're struggling in your business for flow, get direct response marketing going. Get out there to conferences, generate leads, and get consistent flow now. Then automate it, then scale it, then expand into content, and then retarget that audience. And now you have this top of funnel flow that's coming, and now you're crushing it.
Sure. Yeah, dude, phenomenal explanation. How do you track like return on intangibles? So like, for example, let me think if I can think of a good example. Okay, I'll give you an example. So like I have roughly 75 people who work here, okay? Or they either work here or they work for me in some capacity. Most of them are here. Probably not here right now because it's Friday, but and of the 75, I would say at least 50 or 60 of them in some way, shape, or form came from my organic. Okay. So like in some way, shape, or form, as a result of me filming a podcast with you, them watching it over time, eventually I post something on my story, they DM me, somebody on my team talks to them, maybe it's me, maybe it's somebody else, maybe we hire them, they become a real estate agent on my retail team, maybe they become an acquisition guy on my wholesale team, maybe they join our mortgage company, we have LOs, and then over the course of time, they generate revenue for that company. Right. How do you track that? Or can you track that?
Yeah. So there's nothing in marketing that can't be tracked.
Okay.
I could track the impact of so say I've had clients like this. Say you're in roofing. My daughter, she's a nanny for a guy here locally, and he's a roofer. So the storm hit a couple weeks ago. He's insanely busy.
Yeah.
We can track that. A storm, depending on the severity, the length of time, the damage done, we can track that. I could track on your podcast how you wearing a Flip and Simple shirt impacts sales of the program over a certain period of time. You just have to set a mechanism in place for tracking and determine what that KPI is or what that metric is. So when you're tracking like the impact of organic, you have to have mechanisms in place to determine or to determine attribution. So when someone gets hired, you could have a form they fill out that says, well, how did you hear about us? So this is what I think I was on a website opting in for something, again, like HubSpot or something like that. And they said, where did you hear about us? And there's like 12 different options. So I select one. So now they're tracking. Now, it's not 100% accurate because someone could see you in 5 different places and they're going to click the one that's most recent or most significant.
Hey, real quick, I don't know if you know, but I have a totally separate YouTube channel that you probably haven't checked out before. And it's just called Austin Zaback. And I've actually started a new series on that channel where I break down wholesale deals, okay? Wholesale deals that we've done in our business, and I show you step by step how we got the deal, how we sold the deal. I break down all the numbers on the deal, and I even show you the HUD of the deal, so you know we're not playing around. Now, I don't know how long you've been following me, but I do anywhere from 1 to 2 wholesale deals every single day. And my goal is to get to 100 deal breakdowns on that YouTube channel. So definitely, if you haven't already, go check it out. I'll link it down in the description below. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get back to the show.
But it still gives you some idea. Now, when you get an employee that comes in from organic content, you can track in, what is your turnover rate? What's the average production of that employee, and at what point? So first 90 days, probably really low production, and you might be onboarding really fast.
Yep.
But you track that, and in the course of time, they generate X amount of revenue. Well, how much did we spend on organic? How many employees came from that in the course of 12 months, and how much did they generate in that same period? Now we can track the lift from that, and it's not 100% accurate, but you can at least attribute something positive from it.
Well, it'd probably get more accurate over time, I'd imagine, right? Wouldn't the data technically get more, it'd be more reliable, I guess you could say. Like over time, you could basically look, because like to your point, in 90 days time, it's like, okay, well maybe they're, like I've had people that we've hired before, right? And I ask because I've seen guys like big names do it, right? You see guys like Grant, you see guys like, all sorts of big names, that they're obviously pumping out a lot of organic content, right?
Yeah. Which
is marketing, but I think people don't think of that the same way that they think of like Meta or YouTube or Google, right? Or whatever, right? For some reason, people think of it, but to your point that you made in the beginning of the podcast, everything is marketing, right? So if you're running a company, you have you have one employee, and you're making revenue, you must be doing a little bit of marketing, right?
Yeah, marketing is everything, and everything is marketing. And marketing touches everything, and everything touches marketing.
Yeah. I heard a guy, do you know Pace Morby by any chance? Or have you ever heard of that name? Okay, he's a big real estate guy. And he was talking, I can't remember exactly how he said it, so if he's watching or somebody is, don't quote me, but he was basically standing in front of an audience, large amount of people, and he was talking about your brand, right? Which we talked about a little bit, right? But he basically said, I think it was something to the effect of like, raise your hand if you are building your personal brand, right? And a bunch of people raise their hand. And then he's like, something to the effect of like, okay, the people that didn't raise their hand, you're also building your brand. I know you for being inconsistent.
Right.
Like that's your brand, right? Your brand, if I go look and follow you on Instagram and you don't ever post, he's like, that's your brand. Your brand is you don't take it seriously, right?
Yeah, you're either building your personal brand by design or by default.
Right.
So it's what are you doing intentionally or what are you doing unintentionally? You are building it regardless.
So powerful.
Yeah.
So talk to me, how important is it then to build a brand, to do organic, to get in front of people? I think, wouldn't you agree that a lot of people watching right now think that for some reason you're sitting here, AJ, I'm here, and everything you just said for the last hour doesn't apply to them? What would you say to that person? Like, oh, it doesn't apply to me. I'm a teacher. I teach preschool. I teach Spanish. I'm a pool guy. I'm a roofer. I own a laundromat. Like, I don't need to do marketing, right? I don't care.
You're always marketing yourself, and I would say, I'll look at the camera for this one. If you're saying that, you're lying to yourself. I know the psychology there is really, it's making an excuse for the fact that you don't know how to leverage it, and it seems too daunting. So instead of admitting, oh, I don't know how to do that, that's really hard, you just say it doesn't work, because then you don't have to take responsibility for the fact that you don't know how to do it. But if you're humble, you can say, you know what, I agree, I don't know how to do it. If you're a teacher, it doesn't matter. I'll give a perfect example. Today, or 3 days ago, I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn. Random, don't know her. And she reached out because she looked at my LinkedIn profile, and she's working with a client, and he's looking for a CMO. And I talked to her today, and it turns out this guy's he's a big name in the coaching space. Like, he's legit, tens of millions of dollars, and he's looking for someone. Well, that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a personal brand. I've had this podcast wouldn't happen without a personal brand. Now, your fiance, we worked together years ago, but it's my personal brand that kept me on the radar. And if I was just working at McDonald's, then nothing's going to happen. So I put out a personal brand that creates value, so people know what value I have to deliver. So if there's an opportunity that makes sense, they're gonna call me. This podcast, if I didn't have a personal brand, someone watches this, man, that was a lot of value, and then they go to look me up, and I'm nowhere online. Now I can't serve them anymore. There's nothing more that can happen. So it's an obligation. You should be intentional about building a personal brand. Now, if you're a teacher, you should be on LinkedIn. I'm sure there's other platforms for teachers, but why would you not?
Yeah.
Because if a new school, it's innovative, it's transformed the way education is done. Because in American education, it hasn't changed in 100+ years, and it's a broken system. I mean, Arizona, we're 48th in the country, I think, in education, and that's why I homeschool my kids. If you're a teacher and you have a brand, and you're putting out, let's say on TikTok, perfect place for teachers, put out content on TikTok. There's a guy, I just saw this the other day, making like 6 or 7 figures. He's not even a teacher. He just teaches kids how to read on TikTok using what he did to teach his son how to read.
Wow.
I think his son has a learning disability. So he just does these TikToks, and it just blew up on TikTok. So imagine if you're a teacher and you're actually educated in how to educate kids, and you start putting out content. Now you're helping families who maybe don't have access to tutoring. Tutoring is not cheap. I hired a tutor for my kids. It's not cheap. But if you're on TikTok and you're teaching the same thing, now you have value. And let's say you can grow to 1 million followers. I had 2 posts that got me to 15,000 followers in 2 days. And that's being completely inconsistent on TikTok. I'm consistent on Instagram. But if you're consistent, you grow to 500,000, 1 million followers as a teacher, and you come out with a $25 a month membership where you put up reading lessons and math lessons. And of 1 million followers, you get, let's say it's just 10 people a month. That's $250 a month in new revenue. But if you amortize that out over 12 months, you're now making a 6-figure salary in 1 year with a $25 product that makes education accessible. So if you think about it from that perspective, now it's not about money, it's about a mission. Now it's not about a personal brand, it's about a personal obligation to serve people. And if you're serving people properly, they will pay you, and there's no reason why you shouldn't benefit monetarily from serving people in the right way. And that's the ethics of marketing.
Yeah.
If you love people, if you're compassionate for people, if you think about how it transforms their life, they'll pay for it. But then you also help people who can't afford to pay for it, and they will get more. I had a client, perfect example, to wrap up that point. I had a client that I told you about that went from 0 to 3 million in 6 months. Well, 1.5 of that, all the money was spent in the first 3 months, or first 30 days. 60 days after that, so 90 days total, we closed everything. 60 grand spent, 1.5 million in revenue.
Yep.
That's a 25 time return on investment. Then in Q4, because they were really involved in their church, their community, they gave generously to this charity. I said, well, let's use that. Let's connect with people and not just make it about a transaction. So I said, you're going to do a 12 days of giving campaign. Well, what is that? Every day for 12 days, leading up to December 31st, or it's Christmas, one of the two, you'll go live and you'll talk about giving. And you'll talk about how you're giving. You'll talk about ideas of how they can give charitably in the community, in the world. And then we'll send an email out, link to that video, just to build goodwill. And then the call to action will be, if you sign your contract, so these are all people who are in the pipeline.
Yep.
If you sign your contract, we'll give $1,000 of the deal to this charity. So think about that for a second. If you sign on the dotted line, I'm going to take $1,000 of your money and I'm going to donate it, give it away to help feed kids in, third world countries. You're not going to get anything more. There's no incentive for you other than knowing that your money is going to change someone's life. There's the altruistic nature of it, and that's a whole different thing I could talk about. But there's power in that, and that's when you move from the transaction to the transformation, from the money to the mission, from the conversion to the connection. It's a whole different way of doing marketing.
I love that. Yeah. And would you say that your faith has something to do with your ability to be able to be phenomenal in that area?
Yeah. My marketing philosophy, it's evolved over the years, but I'm at a place now where I'm really modeling after the greatest marketer who ever lived, which was Jesus. So Jesus had some people might get offended by that. Well, Jesus wasn't a marketer, he was in a business. Understand what a marketer is. A marketer is someone who connects, who puts out a message, puts out content, a talk, a sermon, in order to connect with people and convert them to a belief system that they believe will change their lives. Jesus has that. It's the only true, the message of faith, and he recruited people. He did all the things marketers do. And if you think marketing is about money, then that will offend you. But if you understand that marketing is really about transformation and connection and relationship, then that doesn't offend you. So Jesus had I've broken it down and just studying his life and his teachings for personal, but also looking at business. How do I market more like Jesus? There's five S's. So first, he would serve people. He'd show up. These people need to eat. This guy's blind. He can't walk. She's got a hemorrhage. There's disease. He's dead. I'm going to bring him back to life. Serve them. You serve them by solving a problem. So your problem is you don't have food. Here's food. Miracle. You're having a wedding, and back then you saved your best wine, and at the end of the wedding they had no wine. Well, that's a bad party. That's a bad look. People are going to talk about that. So he turns water into wine. So he served them by solving a problem, and then he supplied the need. Well, what's the need? He needs to walk. He needs to see. She needs to be healed. They need to eat. They need wine. And then in doing that, he saved them. Save them, their soul, save their family, save the community, save the world. When you save them, you then need to sustain them. So he leaves, if you read the scripture, read the book of Matthew, Jesus leaves and said, I leave the Holy Spirit with you. And I leave my disciples with you. I leave the people that I've taught to sustain and keep this going. That's why the Christian faith has been the most impactful and transformational in the entire world. Our calendar is set by it. The Bible is the most sold, the most read book, most controversial book to ever have existed. And it's that serve them, supply a need, solve a problem, save them, and then sustain them. And if you look at marketing like that, you are at a whole different place.
I love that, dude. Yeah. And I love the faith thing. I'm obviously a Christian myself. And I've been in Nicaragua, a couple times, 3 times, building houses down there, serving people, right? And, I love what you said, too, about marketing. And I think that I get a lot of value from that because I've actually never really thought about it that way, where, marketing is just about what you just talked about. I mean, why does marketing have to do with money? I mean, at the end of the day, I get that we live in the U.S. and everything's we live in a capitalist economy, right? Yeah. So naturally, the way that I guess, would think about it would be that, okay, there has to be some dollar amount associated with marketing. Obviously, the cost of marketing and then the return of that marketing, right? But to your point, at the end of the day, I mean, marketing in a nutshell isn't that, right? It's just that we think it is.
Yeah, and people don't understand everything is currency. So, if you take money, for example, I pull up my wallet, I've got cash on me. Yep. So when I was a kid, growing up, we got our clothes from Goodwill, having $20 was a lot of money. So I look at money, all of this is just, what is this? This is nothing.
Paper.
It's a representation of value. So I did a lot of missionary work. We go to this third world island. There's an island right off the coast of Guam where I lived at the time called Yap. And they have, and even in the island of Guam, they have stone money. If a guy wants to marry a girl, the tradition in a lot of old cultures is to give a dowry. So that might be cattle. It's something of value. Well, there it was like a 6-pack of beer and hot dogs. It wasn't a great culture. But you would give something that represented value. So when you think about that, the value that you want is money so that you can take care of your family. There's nothing wrong with that. And this is why people don't like capitalism and why people will push socialism. And, it's not a political thing. It's a psychological thing. And this is why I don't believe in socialism, because the idea of, I worked hard to earn this value to take care of my family, but because you didn't work as hard or you don't know how to do something the way that I do, I should now disperse that to you. That doesn't make sense, because now it's not an exchange of value. Now it's taking value from someone and just giving it to someone else. But if I'm a coach or I'm in a business and I have something that's of value and I can give that to you, and then you exchange value. Now we've helped each other, and now it's reciprocal. And if there's no reciprocation, is what makes a relationship. In the culture, when you establish a new relationship, you give a gift to the other person. You're reciprocating. So when you take reciprocation out of the relationship, it's no longer valuable.
Yeah.
So money just is a representation of value. But I've also done, I've traded services with people. I've helped people because the value for me was in seeing that person's life changed. But also there's other factors of it. Some people who they don't want to invest in something, they just want free. They don't do anything with it.
Agree.
So
1,000,000% agree
Yeah.
on that. Yeah.
So now there's no value. If
Yeah.
I'm giving it to you for free, it's because I want to see your life change. But if you don't use it and don't do anything with it, you didn't hold up your end of the deal. So why would I continue to do that? I'm actually putting you in a spot where it doesn't help you. But if you're in a spot where I'm requiring you to make an investment, either financially or energy or time, now you're accountable to do something with the thing I gave you, and that actually helps you. It doesn't enable you. And
love
it's
the
just
psychology
different.
of that.
Yeah, it's a different moral, ethical code of how we operate.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's why socialism doesn't work. I mean, we
Yeah.
won't go down that rabbit hole, but no, I love that. You think about the psychology of that, right? Of like, okay, and we've done it, right? You think that, I'm going to go help somebody. I'm going to give them money. I'm going to give them a free product. I'm going to give them free coaching, right? And it's the very people that needed a discount, that needed whatever, some sort of, we had to do something for them for free or whatever to try to help them. Those are the same people that aren't happy. They're
Right.
not, they don't make it, they don't do it, they don't
Exactly.
take action, they freaking complain.
Yeah.
And it's the very people that found a way, right, where there was no way.
Right.
That took that out, they freaking borrowed money, whatever they had to do to exchange that value, right? And those are the people that make it happen at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean-
I love the reciprocal part of that.
Yeah, I've given my last $20 to a guy at the gas station. Like literal, it's my last $20. I have a family, but I felt led to give it. And I've always been taken care of. Like I've always found a way. If I've had to hike miles, not hike, but I had to walk miles to borrow money from the church to pay rent. And I've been on food stamps when I was single. I've been in food stamps, welfare with my family. I moved in my family back in with my parents because one of my businesses fell apart, and we just went through some really tough struggle. But I couldn't just stay there and play the victim.
Yeah.
Because again, if I'm not where I want to be, it's because I'm not yet who I need to be. So when someone isn't willing to work for something, they don't value it. And what's happening is it's actually unethical on the part of us or the person who has that thing to sell a value. If you just keep giving it away, well, now you're not getting value in exchange, and you need to get monetary value for what you do. It's not fair for you to not, and it's also not responsible, because if you have a family, you have people to take care of, and you're just giving everything away for free. And I did this a long time in ministry, giving everything away for free. Well, now I don't have money to take care of the people that matter most because I wasn't responsible. So it's ethical and responsible for me to charge a price and even a premium for what I do. I had someone reach out to me a couple months ago and said, "Hey, can I pick your brain, just have some questions about marketing?" Sure. It's $5,000 an hour. So I talked to her for 45 minutes, and then she wired me money. Now she's more inclined to go use that to get a return on what she invested,
For sure.
as opposed to, well, it's free. Well, now I don't value it, because often we don't use something, not because it isn't useful, but because we don't actually find it valuable. Like this water, if I really value this water, I'm going to use it differently than if, well, it's water, it's abundant, I can find it anywhere. But little do I know that water in particular could change my life. So it's unethical to not charge a price, and that price doesn't have to be money. It can be time, it can be energy. You just got to be responsible with it.
Yeah, I love that, dude. I such valuable information that we're talking about, right? Really, though, truly valuable information. And anybody watching should go back and rewatch like the entire podcast, essentially, right?
100%.
I want to talk just a bit more about faith, because I'm a man of faith, and I try to talk about it as much as I can
Sure.
on social media without obviously causing a problem. But
Yeah.
who cares at the end of the day, right? Were you always a man of faith? Did you get into faith as you got older? I mean, when you were growing up, were you going to church and stuff?
Yeah, I actually grew up in church. My dad was he was an elder. He taught Bible studies. Yeah, I grew up. I mean, the Calvary Chapel movement. I know the church really well. Denominations and Scripture. I'm well versed in that space. almost as well as I am in marketing. But there was a season that, everyone has to go through the journey. And I've always been a person, I never minded challenging what I believe. When the Jehovah's Witness would come to the door and someone from the Mormon community, I listened and I would question and I would study. And my philosophy is, if you tell me something that I'm always open to an idea, I never assume my idea is the idea. One of the guys on my team for our consulting company, I told him, I need you to challenge me, because he told me something that was a great idea. And I said, dude, I need to hear this sooner. Like, I never assume my idea is the best idea. If you think something different, tell me right away, because I'm looking for better ideas. And that's how I come up with great ideas, because I'm pulling what everyone is saying. So I would always be open to it being challenged, and I'd study and find it to be true. But I did go through a season where, this was after COVID and the riots, where I never lost faith, never walked away, but I just got kind of jaded by the church as a whole. And I was disappointed, like by how things were operating. And it brought me to question, like, okay, I don't question Jesus and who he is, but man, I was like, Lord, your church is tripping right now.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? So it was a good while, but then my dad passed. It'll be a year next week. And that
Sorry
kind
to hear
of,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it was, he was only 60. It was a lot of complications health-wise, but it brought me back to a place where, I was driving back from up north. We went up north to kind of get away. I'm the oldest of 8, so managing that whole situation. I'm the oldest, the siblings. I'm communicating. I'm helping my mom, who lives with me now. Moved her in to take care of her, and driving back down, sitting with my wife. And we got a worship song playing, and I think it was a song. It was I forgot what it was exactly, like Healer or something like that. But I remember praying, like, God, what's going to happen? And I remember very distinctly hearing, not audibly, just like in my spirit, in my mind, I'm going to heal him, but it's not going to be here. And as I'm driving, I was holding back tears. And my wife asked me, what's wrong? And then I asked a question. Again, in my mind, I'm just kind of prayer mode. Well, how long is it going to be? 2 weeks. And I told this to my wife. I got my siblings on a call, and I said, this is what I heard. It's going to be 2 weeks. It's not going to be the months that they told us, because there's other stuff going on that they don't even know, and we don't know. It was 2 weeks.
Wow.
But I was grateful for that, because we were able to prepare emotionally and mentally, and made it a great service. At his service, it was the first time in 10 years that I picked up a guitar and led worship again, that I picked up a Bible and preached a sermon again. And that, again, shifted in a really good way the trajectory of where I'm at now, which is why now I'm writing a new book about how to market like Jesus. I'm going a whole new direction from the corporate job role I was at, to now launching something on my own to really focus on bringing faith and business together in a way that's really impactful.
Hey, real quick, I don't know if you know, but I actually wholesale real estate nationwide, and I have buyers all over the nation looking for incredible deals. So if you're a wholesaler and you locked up a deal and you're struggling to find a buyer, I would love to partner with you up on it, and I would love to help you sell it. All you have to do is text me 480-418-5339 and just let me know that you have a deal that you need help selling. Again, the phone number is 480-418-5339. Let me know that you have a deal, you want me to bring a buyer. Somebody on my team will reach out to you right away, and we will help you get it sold. Now let's just go ahead and get back to the show.
I know, like, me sitting here with you is not an accident, because we share a common faith, and then also business. There's a movement happening of people in business who have that faith foundation, because marketing has gotten really toxic, where it's just a money grab and people don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And in any time, in any culture where that's happened, it's always led to a revival. And that's been in the church, but then that also bleeds over into the marketplace. You look at the Renaissance, so much of the great art and music and creativity came out of the church. So when there's a revival within the faith community, it spills over and overflows into the marketplace, into all these different spaces and places where it impacts the lives of people who don't have that same faith, but they benefit from it. So I fully believe that's what's happening right now. And I want to make sure that I'm on mission and I'm paying attention and I'm a part of it, because I see other people doing the same thing. and people I don't know.
Yeah.
And then some people I do know, and new friends I meet, and we stay on mission.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I obviously sorry to hear about your dad, but I mean,
I appreciate that.
To see what you're doing now after the fact, right? Obviously, there was a bigger plan,
Yeah.
Which there always is, and I've been through seasons of my life. I've been definitely through seasons of my life, not where, again, to your point, not where I've questioned whether he existed, right? But just, I think everybody goes through that season where they're like, there are questions there. It's not the ultimate question of like, did or did not Jesus exist, right? It's just more of like, okay, why this, why that, I don't understand, right? And normally it's just a matter of time before we figure it out and we get back on the horse, and typically with a new purpose and a new mission and a new vision, right?
Yeah.
And for you, I love that you're writing a new book, right? And you're going the consulting route, and you're getting, out of the kind of corporate world, I think, right?
Yeah.
And I think you're going to dominate it, number one, but then number two, I think you're going to change a lot of lives, right?
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And it's what I started with my wife and kids shortly after that season was, Wednesday nights and a lot of nights we have dinner at the table. But we try to be intentional, and things get busy, but we sit together at the table, have dinner, and then we'll memorize a verse for the week. Something we knew we started, and the first verse we were memorizing with the kids, and now my daughters are 19 and 13. My one daughter's off at Grant Cardone University, but my two younger kids are really investing in that with them. My son's 9, so 9 and 13, and it was Romans 8:28 that says, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And we tend to feel insecure or anxious and worrisome when we look at what's happening now, because we don't have control of what's happening now, and we forget that he has control, and also we don't know what's coming later. But when we understand that we live in the present, we can look to the past, but we can't perceive the future. So we look to the past and we use the information from the past to try to understand what's happening now. But by default, because just human nature, we look to the past and the negative, things that went wrong. Well, this must be that again. Well, what happened last time was, and we default to that negative, which is why God gives us promises, to prosper you, not to harm you, Jeremiah 29:11, to Matthew 6, to give you food and shelter, and don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough problems. What he's really saying is, I'm already in tomorrow because I'm not limited by time or space. So what you see as now, as past, present, future, I see as it's all now. So all I have to remember and remind myself in those moments is, this is already taken care of. Well, what's already taken care of? All I need to do is look for to be led to the next step. Well, my dad's going to pass. What's going to happen? It's already taken care of. Well, I'm just stepping out of the corporate world and going back into business, and that's a big lift. And what am I going to do? It's already taken care of. My job is I have to not worry, because worry is a distraction from the path that's already set ahead of me. Ephesians 10 or 8:10 says, we're his workmanship. We're by design, created in Christ Jesus for good works that he has already ordained that we should walk into them. In other words, we were created for a purpose, and the good things, the work, the blessings, the success, it's already ahead of us. We just have to walk into it, not build it, not find it, just walk into it. And the way we walk into that is by being led and not allowing ourselves to stay distracted, not to not get distracted, because we will get distracted. Like, Peter, when he was walking on the water and he got distracted by the waves, is to not stay distracted so that we can see, okay, here's the next step. And you just go back to principles in scripture. Your word is a light into my path and a lamp into my feet. Well, back then they didn't have flashlights. Back then they didn't have electricity. They had, we'd be sitting here with a candle. Yeah. And a light or a lamp unto my feet means a lamp literally has a very small radius of illumination. You can see your feet and maybe a few feet ahead of you. So the idea is, we read scripture, we clear our mind. Romans, your mind is transformed by the washing of the word. Keep ourselves focused, and we can see just a few steps ahead of us, because that's all we need. Because if I saw when I was 21 and single, I was living in Australia, and I was working at a Hillsong church and interning there. life was great. Life was awesome. If I saw that 11 years later, I would be struggling to provide for a family, I wouldn't have gotten married. I'd have run from it.
Yeah.
We need to not see ahead of us. So when you're striving for control, you're striving to take hold of something that isn't for you. Well, what's going to happen in a year? It's none of your business. Your business is right now because that's all you can handle. And you're being prepared for it. So allow the preparation to happen. Allow this season of adversity and pain to prepare you to persevere toward your purpose. Stay focused on now.
Phenomenal advice, dude. I love that.
Making me preach over here, man.
Dude, I mean, you're killing the game, man. I mean, I think I needed to hear that. I think everybody needs to hear that. People should go back and rewatch it, It's so true, It's just so dang true. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons why I love my faith, is just because there's just certain things, man, where I'm just like, gosh dang, I can't argue with that, Like, it's just, it's too true, It's just too real, right? And, one of the reasons that I love, being a Christian and having faith, So, man, dude, I love it. I know you're obviously a really busy guy, so I don't want to take up much more of your time. I want to make sure people watch the entire podcast and rewatch it, but I'd love to know, in conclusion, if you had to give a piece of advice, to the world, right? And it could be marketing, it could be faith, it could be anything, what would that one thing be?
Wow. The first thing that comes to mind is it's a quote, and it's unknown who said it. There's some ideas, but nobody really knows. Life is not about discovering yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And you have to decide who you want to be. But more importantly, if you have that faith foundation, it's asking who were you created to be? And to do that, you have to understand whose you were created to be. So, I'll leave people with this quote, and I wrote it in my first book. You're not a passive character in your story. You're the author of your story, because there's a scripture that says he's the author and finisher of our faith. That's from him. He creates that, he writes that, we don't. But we use that faith to be the author of our story in collaboration with him. And if you understand that, then you're never on your own. You are literally just following in the footsteps, following the path that's laid in front of you, and actively working to collaboratively with God, write your story. If you understand that changes everything. Literally. Yeah, from the ground up, 100%. Really, really good advice, dude. I think, man, got a lot of clips that we're going to have to chop up here and put out on social media. Where can people find your books, and then where can they find you if they want to get consulted by you, or they have a business, they want to talk to you? Sure. How do they get a hold of you? Yeah, find me on Instagram, on Facebook. It's all the same. Instagram's the platform where I'm most active. It's just I'm AJ Adams. Letter I, letter M, like, hey, I'm AJ Adams. Yeah, I love that. And then Instagram, do you have a website or anything like that? That's all coming soon. Okay. We got a website that's going to be released this month. The book will be, we'll do a pre-order, a wait list next month. So a lot of big things coming toward the end of this year, and follow me. Stay tuned. Yeah. What's the name of the best-selling book? The middle one, the second book you wrote. That is The $1 Billion Branding Blueprint. Cool. And people can get that on Amazon? You can still find it on Amazon. Incredible. Yeah. Okay. Hey, AJ, I really appreciate it, man. It was an honor to have you here. Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Hey, if you're still watching, do me a huge favor. If you're listening, definitely leave a 5-star review. Go back, re-listen to that phenomenal podcast. If you're watching on any platform, YouTube in particular, do me a huge favor. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, comment down below. Appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one.